You are listening to the Marc Guzman Podcast Experience. What's up, everyone? It is Friday, July 13th. It is, wow, isn't today like a bad luck day?
Yeah, Friday the 13th usually is a bad luck day.
Yeah, do you know the history behind Friday the 13th?
The
Knights Templar and them being
I read
murdered?
about it in the Da Vinci Code a long time ago. They actually mentioned in that book back when everyone was reading it.
Yeah. It was, what was the book that I read? Holy Blood, Holy Grail. If you get a chance to read that, it's a book about this big, but it's like 500 pages, really tiny font, but if you're a history buff, it's great reading and you'll get through it quick. If you're not a history buff, it takes forever to get through it. Like, it took me probably a year to get through it just because it's a ton of information, a lot of proof that they supply, and it's very interesting how that whole story develops. And I know the Da Vinci Code movie built a lot of their storyline off of that book.
Yeah.
The book came out, I think, in the 70s, and it was a big fiasco where, like, the Catholic Church was even at local churches telling people, do not buy this book and do not read it.
Don't auto power off camera.
The camera just turned off?
No, it's trying to. Oh, there it goes.
Little technical difficulty here with the camera. Do we have a plug on that side? Okay, awesome. Yeah, so it's a very interesting book. So for any of you out there that love history, definitely go out, buy that book if you haven't read it already. It's a real eye-opener in history, and very cool book.
Starting off a little history lesson today. I like it.
Yeah. So, and it's crazy, like July 13th or Friday 13th, like what happened was, like, the Knight Templars were so big, and then the Catholic Church just ordered a massacre of everyone, and they literally raided everyone, murdered them, and there were only a few that survived. But because of the giant massacre, that's why it happened on Friday the 13th.
The date Philip IV of France arrested hundreds of the Knights Templar, and probably a lot of bad stuff happened after that.
Yeah, crazy story.
And of course, the fear of the number 13 is triskaidekaphobia. Triskaidekaphobia. I don't know.
Yeah.
Say it 10 times really fast.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so this is another Ask Marc Anything episode. So thank you for watching, following along, whether you're on the live feed or whether you watch this video later down the road. Have a great weekend. But let's get into some questions here. We've got 3 questions, and let's get started on the first one.
Can a home depreciate in value?
Answer is yes. Right now in the Bay Area, there's a lot of it feels, and I've said this multiple times on the podcast before, it feels like 2005. 2005, just a year and a half, 2 years right before the big recession, big housing market crash. Everyone's so gung-ho on buying a home. Values keep going up. I mean, I was just looking at some data this week, which is crazy. Oakland appreciated 23% from last year to this year. I mean, just ridiculous numbers. And there's massive appreciation here in the Bay Area. So a lot of people are thinking, well, values are going to keep going up. There's a housing shortage, which is true. But it can only sustain itself for so long, or until something catastrophic in the economy happens that reverses that pattern. So it would be typically an anomaly, something that happens when we had the Great Recession. It was really a lot of the bad mortgages that were packaged and securitized with a lot of bad stocks and investments. And then you had banks going under. They were filing claims, and then AIG couldn't pay off all these claims, and then it was just one big giant mess. So eventually some correction will happen. When that will be, no one really knows. If anyone says they really know, they don't know. Are we having camera issues, or are we good?
Yeah, we'll just power through them.
Okay.
What is a good question to ask a property manager when interviewing a property manager?
Okay, so I've had this experience multiple times when I'm interviewing for a new listing or a new property or a new complex to take over. And it's very common for property owners to interview multiple property managers before they decide on who they want to go with. Now, one thing that I tend to do is overshare. I will meet with an owner and explain to them everything about the city, explain to them everything about marketing, everything about properly managing the property, local laws, state laws, county laws, and really explaining to them what they need to do to be in compliance. And I think that's really important. So when you're interviewing property managers, I think you really need to ask a question, and that question is, can you explain to me what I need to do to the property to be in compliance with local ordinance laws? I think that question is very crucial because 95%, and I'm not joking here, 95% of all properties I transition over to my company are missing a lot of the basic local ordinance, state ordinance, county ordinance, and it's just horrible. There's so much liability exposed to property owners, and I take over, and it's a lot more work on my end because I have to fix a lot of these properties, but we fix them, and that's what makes us really the best. So when you're interviewing property managers, you want to ask them, what do I need to do, or what does a property need to come up to code with local ordinance on rental properties? And I guarantee you, out of 10 property managers you interview, maybe only one, if you're lucky, two, will actually know the answer.
All right, and then with the podcast 1 year anniversary just a couple weeks away, what has been your favorite episode?
So every episode has really been my favorite because every episode's completely different. It's a different person, whether it's real estate, whether it's an Ask Marc Anything, whether it's interview guest. We just had Chris Riggins, comedian, on the podcast. You can see the live feed on Facebook. I think it might be expiring any minute now, but it'll be airing next Tuesday, July 17th, I believe. So every guest that we've had has been very unique. So I don't want to get into answering what's a favorite episode, but I do want to do a throwback to an old episode that we did with which I think was very interesting. And the reason why I'm bringing this one up is because next weekend I'm actually going to see them in Pleasant Hill, and it's actually going to be the Blue Devils. Justin Heimbecker. I can't remember what episode it was, but I want to say it was in the first 20 episodes.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, so if you go that far back on the podcast, which you can on iTunes, iHeart, Spotify, anywhere, go listen to his episode. It's amazing. Like, a lot of people don't understand the athleticism of these musicians and people that play in bands and drum corps, and it really exposes you to a whole new world. And so my girlfriend's nephew is actually going to be performing, not with the Blue Devils, but with a competitor, and we're going to see him next weekend on, I believe it's the 21st, in Pleasant Hill for a big competition. Blue Devils will be there, so it'll be very interesting to see. He's not a fan of the Blue Devils because they are big competitors against each other. But go check out that episode. I think that's a great throwback episode. And I think it's really fun to see some of the podcast episodes from way back when we started, which it seems like forever, but really it's not even a year ago. It'll be a year ago in 2 weeks. So have a great weekend. Thanks for watching another episode of Ask Marc Anything. Definitely go check out that book, Holy Blood, Holy Grail. Came out sometime in the 70s if you're a history buff. Or you could probably just watch summaries of videos on YouTube.
There's always Wikipedia, too.
Exactly.
And then the Blue Devils episode was episode 14 with Justin Heimbecker.
Perfect. Well, thanks for watching, and have a great weekend.